morning, everybody. It's your boy, Algebra, coming to you live and direct from the studio, not the studio. I'm not at home right now, down in Kentucky, celebrating the life of one of Erica's aunties this week. Um, but I still want you to make sure that you are fully prepared for what's coming next. It is the hardest thing that we do all school year. We're talking about factoring trinomials. I'm going to start you off with a couple problems that you do know how to do, but this first about 5 minutes is a whole lot of information that I definitely want you to take notes about. I would also suggest that you kind of treat this like a World Civ type lecture right now and write down some of the questions that you had so that when I come back tomorrow morning on Friday with the parents involved, that you are completely ready and that you have something to share and something to contribute to where we're heading next. These are long processes. I'm going to give you step-by-step directions in this video, but you need to make sure that you try to practice it a few times on the homework tonight. Here we go. First problem over here on the left side, we've got 4x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 6. And from what we talked about earlier this week, we said that you should chop it in half so that you can deal with two smaller pieces instead. The first one, you could both be divided by 4x, so you end up with an x plus 2 left over. The other side, 3x plus 2 is left over. Since those match perfectly, it creates its own parentheses. Your answer for this problem is 4x plus 3 times x plus 2. Now, having said that, notice in the very beginning of the problem, you could have started off by combining like terms in the middle. This could have been a trinomial instead of a 4-term polynomial. What we have to be able to do starting today is start off with a trinomial and break that middle term apart. If we can learn how to break apart the middle term in the correct sequence using the correct numbers, then all of these problems will work out correctly. 11 could have been 8 plus 3, but it very well could have been 7 plus 4. We could have broken it apart into 10 plus 1. If you choose the wrong set, your parentheses won't match, and you'll be left with no solution. So it's always a big deal to figure out the magic factor pair that's going to fit in the middle. So let's go to the second problem. 2x squared plus 10x plus 1x plus 5. Again, we could have combined these in the beginning. And if we chose a different factor pair than 10 and 1, then it wouldn't work out perfectly. It has to be the exact right combination. And so what we're going to be talking about later on in this video is how to make sure that you have the perfect combination. Here we go. Split the problem in half. Do your GCF in each section. 2x, x plus 5 is left over. Question that came up earlier this week was, well, what happens if there's nothing in common between the 1x and the 5? You can always divide by 1. It is your last resort, but it is always there as a possibility. And again, because we had the perfect matching factor pair in the middle, since I created this problem for you, I knew that we were going to end up here with our final answer. 2x plus 1 times x plus 5. Our goal is, again, to break apart that middle term and choose the best option for us. This process that we have just completed, all we're going to be doing is add a couple steps to the beginning of it. your step-by-step directions. Step number 1, we have to reorganize any trinomial to make sure it's in standard form. Standard form means that it's going to be descending powers ax squared plus bx plus c. And we use a, b, and c just because they're random coefficients. But the important part again was that a squared, the ax squared, the bx, and the c as descending powers. The next step is that we're going to take the a, which is called the leading coefficient, and the c, which we call a constant, and multiply those together. We're going to list out all of the possibilities that create that factor pair. For instance, if I say the first number was 2 and the last number was 3, we multiply those together and we get 6. So possibilities would be, in the middle of the problem, we could use a 1 and a 6, a 2 and a 3, -1 and a -6, or a -2 and a -3. So it has to match perfectly to two things. The combination has to multiply together to be AC. And step 4 says we're going to replace the linear term, okay, the middle one, and it has to match with addition. That's how we make sure that it's the perfect factor pair every time. And then after that, we just do it like a normal problem. So let's do an example now. First step says reorganize the standard form. Done. Second step says multiply the leading coefficient and the constant. So A and C. A is 1. C is 8. We multiply those together and we get 8. Here's all of your possibilities. Step 3. 1 times 8 is a possibility. We could use 2 times 4. We could use a -1 and a -8. Or we could use a -2 and a -4. Those are the only possible numbers that we could use in this particular problem. Step 4 says replace the linear term with the best pair. So if I'm telling you I want to replace 6, I need the pair that's going to add together to make 6. 1 plus 8 is not 6. 2 plus 4 is. So this step actually tells us to do the following. X squared plus 2x plus 4x plus 8. We haven't actually changed anything about the problem other than how we organized it. 2x plus 4x is the same thing as 6x. And now we know how to finish this thing. To finish the problem, you want to chop it in half. Tell me what each side has in common, just like we started this video with. Because we chose that perfect factor pair, it matches, and now we are complete. X plus 4 times x plus 2. I apologize for that little snafu there with my email popping up. I got big fingers. Let's do another one. This time I'm going to hide the actual steps of the problem so that we can zoom in and take care of this process a little bit more explicitly to this example. Step number 1 said, take your first and last numbers, put them together. Magic number is 18. So how could you possibly make 18? 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, or any of those combinations with negatives. So which one fits the best? When I say it has to fit the best, we have to be looking right here at this middle section. Only one of those pairs possibly creates positive 11. It's got to be 2 and 9. So let's replace it. 3x squared. I'm going to put the 9x first just because I feel like it. Plus 2x plus 6. 4 terms means we can chop it in half and do a GCF in each section. And from here, your final answer appears. 3x plus 2 times x plus 3. Again, the process is multi-step. There's a lot happening inside of here. But the steps that you should be using should be just fine. They should work every time. And if they don't work, you just can't do the problem. Last example, it's going to take about 2 minutes to talk all the way through it. There's one extra detail this time, and it has to do with the negatives. Step number 1, combine the first and the last. Notice I did select the negative with the 4. The magic number this time is negative 36. The negative 36 can be broken apart in a whole lot of different ways. Let's start going through them. 1 and 36. 2 and 18. 3 and 12. 4 and 9. 6 and 6. So here's the new step involved here. If the magic number is negative, you need to subtract the factor pairs. One of them has to be negative, in other words. So the correct choice this time, to make a negative 9, it needs to be a negative 12 and a positive 3. 9x squared. Notice every single time in this, we've kept the first term completely intact. Second term, negative 12x. Third term, plus 3x. Last term, minus 4. Chop it in half. Do the GCF on each one of those halves. And finally, you get to an answer where both parentheses should be the same, and you have a final result. That final result should be 3x plus 1 in the first parentheses and 3x minus 4 in the second. There's absolutely no way I would expect you to understand this entire process after one 15-minute video. We're going to be doing this all next week. Your homework tonight is 2 parts. The first part is review. The second part is to try, so we have a place to start our conversation tomorrow. This has been your boy, Algebra. Peace.